has suddenly, like a emergency brake, has stopped. And because of that economic crisis, it has certainly impacted the media industry. But I will come to the issue of media industry later on. Let me first discuss how this crisis, the public health crisis, has presented a different type of challenges before journalism, number one, and also how journalism has tackled this issue. Uh, as many of you know, in any such crisis, uh, when people are, facing serious public health crisis, nobody knows how this, infection, COVID-19 spreads. What is its treatment? Uh, you know, in that situation, what we call fear of unknown, you know, uh, it has created such a situation where most of the people, those who are under lockdown, they are searching information. They are looking for information, because in such situation, in such crisis, information is crucial for their survival. And we all know the statistics that most of the time new channels, they just occupy around 5 to 6% of overall TV viewership. But during this crisis, the TV viewership of new channel has increased tremendously, and because of the uh, uh, can you hear me? Because I'm getting a lot of noises. So what it has, created the problem is.
You have an option to mute all. I think you should exercise so that whoever wants to this thing, they can switch on their mic. And at the right side at the bottom, the option is there, mute all.
So what is actually happening, because of this crisis, people are searching information, as I was discussing. And during this time, what happens, because people are searching information, so during this period, the TV viewership has increased. But the problem is what we call fear of unknown. During that time, people generally go for, authentic information, reliable information, relevant information. And that is the also time when, different type of vested interest, sometimes due to number of reasons, they may start spreading misinformation and disinformation. During this crisis also, we have seen that, what we call, deluge of misinformation and disinformation. In fact, some of the experts are calling it infodemic. And because of this infodemic, there are so many problems because of this infodemic. We have heard that, particularly take the case of even newspapers. There was a, a miscommunication or misinformation or fake news, which is spread widely, that newspaper may carry, coronavirus and infect people. And because of that, millions of people have stopped buying newspapers. Resident Welfare Association have stopped, hawkers to enter inside the premises and distribute newspapers. Similarly, this infodemic or misinformation or fake news about, doctors, nurses, has also created problem for health workers. because there was fear that doctors or the nurses may carry this virus. And because of that, we have seen that in number of areas or locality or houses, house owners are not allowing doctors to stay there or nurses. So this is what we call stigma. Through this misinformation and fake news, stigma around this coronavirus and COVID is created. And because of that, doctors, health workers, police officers, they're all facing this stigma. Not only that, even doctors are saying that the patients or those who are infected, they are also facing stigma. And because of that stigma, number of people, they are not disclosing that they have symptoms of coronavirus, and it has created huge problem for health system, because people are not coming out, and they are coming out only when their situation is very worse, and which is very difficult to deal with. So I think because of this misinformation and fake news, and which created a situation of infodemic during this pandemic, governments, health workers, health system, police professionals, they are all facing problem of dealing with such infodemic. At that time, the role of journalism was very crucial. We expected that newspapers, television channels, radio stations, they will inform people during this period. They will educate people. But the problem was newspapers were not allowed to distribute it. Secondly, unfortunately, in most of the television news channels, particularly I can say about India, especially language news channels, instead of informing people, educating people, soothing them, calming them, because there was fear. Of course, sometimes it's a genuine fear. But during this time, the role of television and radio station, and particularly electronic media and digital platform, is to inform people, is to educate them about this virus and COVID-19. But unfortunately, it's really I'm it's a how can I say this? But some of the television channels, in fact, instead of informing people, educating people, they have started exploiting fear of unknown, or they have created some kind of a fear psychosis. They have in fact also played important role in stigmatizing corona patients. And not only that, in some cases they have targeted some community, religious groups. This was unnecessary, and which created communal rifts in the society, created a very difficult situation for doctors and health professionals or police officers and administration to deal with it. So I think overall, during this period, except few newspapers and digital platforms, where this is another very important issue related to journalism and its performance during this crisis. Particularly, I'm talking in the context of Indian journalism. Except few English newspapers and specialized journalists, the trained journalists who can deal with health-related information and disseminate it in a proper, relevant, accurate, objective manner. Except few, in most of the places, this is very unfortunate situation, and which this coronavirus crisis has exposed us. In most of the newspapers, particularly language newspapers, language television channels, they don't have a specialized health journalist or health correspondents who can inform people, who can educate people, who can decode scientific development and scientific jargons and health related jargons and educate people. Instead of, they were playing with all kind of nonsense, infodemic, creating, in fact, a fear psychosis or exploiting that fear psychosis. So this is the time, when people wanted more accurate, factual, relevant, objective information. But unfortunately, most of the television channels, they failed. They failed us. They failed our system. And this also, highlighted another problem that we really need in a country like India, with a 1.3 billion people, where we need trained, specialized health communicators who knows, the nuances of health and health related information, how to distribute it, how to make it, interesting as well as educative. This is the challenge we are facing now. Most of the newspapers, they don't appoint, health journalists, or they don't train their journalists in health related issues. So this is the time when we now we are, facing this challenge. So overall, journalism, particularly in the language journalism, we are seeing this shortcoming. Another issue which I would like to discuss at this point, the issue of particularly the young journalists who are reporting from the field. One thing is they are not trained. Second is there is also issue of safety, and they, as we know, in number of cases, particularly in Mumbai, more than a dozen journalists also get infected with coronavirus. So it's again another challenge for most of the news organizations to ensure safety of their reporters and journalists who are in the field and gathering information, collecting information, and disseminating it. It's again a issue of training your journalists how to gather information safely and how to reach to the experts for explanation, because journalists are not experts. Only doctors, health experts, health communicators, only they can decode the ever evolving situation related to COVID-19. Another issue which I would like to discuss here, which is related to issue of journalism. In fact, overall, globally, most of the experts are realizing that we have not invested in our training of our journalists and desk people in how to handle such epidemics or pandemics. I think now editors and owners are realizing that they have to invest in journalists. And because I'm not talking to many young journalists or the budding journalists or those who are studying journalism, this is the time I think you should seriously think about developing expertise in how to collect information, how to decode information related to health or particularly public health. How to talk to experts, how to explain information related to health and COVID-19. Now, after discussing the role of journalism briefly, I would like to move to another part of this discussion, that is media industry. As we have discussed, this is unprecedented situation. Because of the lockdown, economy is at standstill, everything is halted. And because of that, the most important driving force behind media, particularly news media, newspapers, television channels, radio station, digital platforms, what is their main driving force? That is advertising. Advertising has completely collapsed. And because of that, most of the news organization, particularly print media, especially newspapers, because their circulation has gone down drastically. So advertisers are also not there, because most of the markets are closed. Nobody is buying things. They are not going to markets. So what they will advertise? And there is actually economic crisis also. So nobody is advertising. So overall, according to some industry estimates, the overall its advertising spend is down by almost 80%. There is only 20% advertising is left. And the second part of this crisis is because most of the news organization, particularly television news and newspapers or print media, they are heavily dependent on advertising revenue. In fact, in few cases of big newspapers, they are almost 80 to 90% their revenue is coming from advertising. So when advertising collapsed, they are in a serious trouble. And the problem is this coronavirus crisis is not going to end in few weeks or months, but overall, they are saying, or most of the industry experts are saying, that this may continue for at least 6 to 7 months. And in 6 to 7 months, according to Indian Newspaper Society, which is an industry body of newspapers and print media, more than 800 newspapers are member of this society. So according to Indian Newspaper Society, their losses are in the range of 4 to 5,000 in just 1.5 months, and they are expecting that this year they may going to lose around 14 to 15,000 crore of business. So which is huge. So it's almost deadly for most of the newspapers, and that is showing. You can, if some of you still subscribing newspapers, you can see the Times of India, which was more than 40-page newspaper. Now it's just 18 or 20 or 16 pages newspaper. They have almost stopped their supplements. And you can see there is hardly, one or two, corporate advertisement, and most of the advertisement is actually coming from tender or some government advertisement. So because of the, collapse of advertising, most of the media organizations, they are facing serious problem. Another, sector of media, which is entertainment media, films, almost no new films is released because most of the cinema halls, multiplexes are closed, and nobody knows how long, because these are the places where COVID can spread. So I don't see in next few months cinema halls or multiplexes are going to be open. So cinema or films are also in crisis. Another issue or the challenge is about television. Of course, television viewership has surged. Television viewership is going up, but the problem is they are not getting advertising, and also they are unable to produce new programs. So this is another crisis before television news or television channels or even entertainment channels. They are also facing serious crisis of collapse of advertising, and they are also heavily dependent on advertising revenue. Their subscription revenue is almost around 50%. So overall, media industry is in huge disruption. They are facing almost a deadly crisis, particularly print media. In next 6, 7 months, 8 months, how this COVID-19 is going to unfold, how it is going to evolve, whether it is going to die down or we will find a new vaccine for it. Nobody knows. So everything is uncertain, and the biggest problem is uncertainty, and because of the uncertainty, nobody is advertising. So this is a huge problem. Of course, viewers, readers, they are, they want information. They are, going to the digital platforms. They are watching television news. Their, viewership has surged. In fact, hugely increased. But they don't. They have nothing to offer, and because the problem is there is no advertising. So how they will sustain themselves? So media industry is in serious crisis. And because of that, there are, discussion going on that few small or medium-sized newspapers, particularly language newspapers, they may find it difficult. And some of the small English newspaper or medium-sized English newspapers, they will also find it difficult to sustain themselves in coming months. I will not be surprised to see some of the small or medium-sized English newspapers or language newspapers are folding or closing down. And some magazines also, like, during this crisis, Outlook magazine has stopped publication. Some other magazines have also stopped publication. They are only available online. They are distributing their PDF copies. But I don't know what will happen in next few months. But certainly, if advertising is not returning, if subscription is not increasing, or if subscribers are not ready to pay the actual cost of a newspaper or a magazine, I don't see how they will sustain themselves. Some big newspaper or newspaper groups who may have some other businesses, they may, sustain themselves for few months or few, maybe 1 or 2 years, but majority of them will find it difficult to sustain themselves. So it will certainly create problems for journalists also, because we are already hearing job losses. We are also hearing pay cuts, also, what they call furlough, which means journalists are sent on long leave without pay, which is almost like losing your job. So this is a huge problem for media industry as well as journalism. It's a huge disruption, and because of this disruption, because media industry is in disruption, journalism is in disruption, some vested interest, they are using this opportunity to spread fake news, misinformation, disinformation about COVID-19 and creating fear in the minds of the people. And we have seen what happened near Mumbai, Palghar, a case of mob lynching, because of this spread of fake news. So I think it's the overall situation is very complicated. Overall media industry is in huge crisis. Journalism, of course, it's a huge opportunity for journalism to, inform people, educate people. People want relevant, objective, accurate, fair information. But the problem is, who will sustain journalism? How journalism will sustain itself? And there are some discussions going on globally, including India. The first thing is, print has to, rethink about its strategy. Most of the print publication, they have to rethink about their strategy. They have to transition themselves to digital platforms. But the problem with digital, they are of course attracting huge audience. It's growing. But the problem with digital is nobody is paying. So sooner than later, they have to, devise a united strategy to, ask their readers to pay for the information. Because for quality information, ultimately, subscribers have to pay for it. Otherwise, it will not be sustainable. Globally, as we all know, most of the newspapers in West, they were facing this crisis a few years back. They have changed their strategy. They have migrated to, the digital platforms. They have strengthened their digital presence, and they are now charging for their digital content or the content. And because of that, New York Times, Washington Post, Guardian newspaper, they are all, in first time in their history, their subscription revenue is more than their advertising revenue. So I think Indian newspapers, earlier they were thinking that, newspapers are like sun, which, sunsets in the west and rises in the east. So which means, there is no fear for newspaper. They are still, growing. But this COVID-19 crisis has brought this lesson before the newspapers that they have to rethink about their strategy. They have to charge money for their digital content. So I think in coming weeks or months, we will see that most of the quality newspapers, they will start charging money for their digital content, which is almost free now. Secondly, they have to invest heavily in quality of journalism, because when you are asking your readers to pay for the content, then readers will also ask for quality content. And for quality content, most of the news organization, they have to invest heavily in specialization. Like take the case of COVID crisis, they have to invest or recruit, highly trained journalists who can cover health or health crisis. Like take the case, I'm just giving an example. CNN and their chief medical correspondent is Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who is a trained MBBS doctor. So I think most of the Indian newspapers or the digital platforms, they have to rethink about their strategy, particularly about their content. They have to invest heavily in their content. They have to, go for niche content. Only then readers will pay. The third thing, which I personally think that they have to fight this disinformation, misinformation, and fake news. They have to heavily invest in fact-checking teams. They have to appoint fact-checking teams within the news organization. They have to train their journalists to, fact checks. We will need more fact checkers within the news organization. And in fact, most of the journalists, they must be trained in fact checking, because facts will be more important in coming weeks and months and years. Third thing, which is I think most important for most of the news organization to rethink about, is their strategy of which started in 80s, particularly with the newspapers, because they were heavily reliant on advertising revenue. Now they have to, change their strategy. The old model of advertising driven media, which was also, problem for their independence. Now they have to find a new revenue model, which is more sustainable, long lasting, and particularly in digital area. And that new model, I personally think, is, relying on your subscriber. Another issue which is emerged during this crisis is, some of the giant digital platforms like Google, Facebook, they are taking large chunk of advertising revenue from the publishers, either television publishers or broadcasters or, news publishers. So in Australia and France, at least in these two countries, regulators have started discussion about that these big media or the digital giants like Google and Facebook, they must pay for information they are using and they are, taking away from publishers. They must share revenue with publishers. And I think we all should watch what is happening in Australia and France. France is taking some steps. Australia is thinking to bring a legislation where it will be mandatory for most of the big digital platforms like Google and Facebook to share revenue with publishers. I think in India, we should also start discussion on it. Um, and third thing, which I foresee, particularly with the media industry, in coming months, we may see some mergers and acquisition. Some weaker players, either in television news industry or television industry overall, or in newspapers, they have to either acquired by big media giants, or they have to merge with the bigger ones. But it will certainly create problem for democracy, because in democracy we require multiple platforms. We require, diversity and plurality of information. We require more and more platform, and not a very few newspapers and television channels. Because of this tough competition and the problem of sustainability, few smaller and medium-sized newspapers may die, or television channels may have to, they don't have any option, but they have to close down. So in that situation, I personally think that government has to step up and create some kind of relief and package for and television channels, because we cannot imagine a vibrant democracy with few media houses or few media forums or media outlets. We require diversity and plurality of information, because democracy depends on diversity of opinion, diversity of information. And for that, we need or we have to devise a strategy where we have to ensure that smaller and medium-sized players still survive and flourish. Fourth thing, which I personally think is important in this during this crisis, is also about role of common citizens. I think common citizens, if they value information, critical information, reliable information, accurate information, then they have to spend money on quality newspapers, quality news channels, quality digital platforms. I personally think that we cannot imagine a democracy without vibrant media. We cannot think about ourselves as a citizens also without a flourishing journalism industry or vibrant journalism. So then we have to sustain the journalism, and for that we have to spend money. Like we are spending money on number of other things, so we have to spend some money on newspapers or digital platforms. Like during this crisis, one very strange thing is OTT platforms, over the top platforms, particularly Prime Video, Netflix, kind of entertainment platforms, they are flourishing. People are paying for their content, and they're doing good business. So I think like we are paying for Netflix or Prime Video or many other such platforms, we have to pay for news content also, because our survival depends on critical, objective, truthful, accurate information, particularly during this crisis. So COVID-19 crisis has taught us lesson to understand or to value the importance of vibrant journalism and media industry. Globally, everywhere, experts and politicians, political thinkers, philosophers, media experts or educationists, everyone is discussing this crisis. And I think it is also an opportunity for all of us to think about or to reimagine the role of journalism, post COVID-19 and during the COVID-19, I think we have to focus on few things in coming months or years. First, most of the journalism departments, they have to invest heavily on training their young journalists in some specialized area. One of the area is public health or health journalism. Also, we need to train communicator. We need large number of health communicators. So we have to invest in training of health communicators also, because in India is so diverse country. We cannot communicate only in Hindi and English and in some regional languages. We have to create health communicator who can communicate in regional dialects or local dialects, who can create interesting information in a very or very important information in interesting manner, which can be distributed to a large number of people, especially in rural area or in areas where they don't have access to mainstream media. So secondly, we have to create large pool of health communicators. Fourth, I think we have to devise a strategy. Government has to think, industry has to think. There must be some, this is not the time for cutthroat competition. This is time for more cooperation among media houses. They must cooperate with each other, help each other, and particularly take care of journalists. Instead of firing them, cutting their salaries, I think we have to, take care of the journalists, because they are very crucial for survival of democracy. They are very crucial for, our own survival, because they are collecting information and disseminating to us. So their survival is also very important. So I think these are the few challenges and opportunities. It's an opportunity for print media to reimagine itself, to rethink about its digital transition strategy, and start charging money for quality content. Invest in quality content. These are some of the I think issues I wanted to discuss today. I would be happy to take few questions, because it's just like a kind of a monologue. I'm also finding it difficult. So I would request, open this floor. It's almost more than 40 minutes. So now it's your turn. Ask your question, make your comment. I'm here to answer your questions.
Good afternoon, one and all. Please use the raise your hand option, or you can pitch in your questions. We have a question from Ravi Kumar.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. Mr. Ravi, would you like to ask your question? Sir, as you know, from last 3 months, almost 1.5 million articles have been published, pointing mainly upon COVID-19. Don't you think too much of information gives birth to doubt? As a reader, it's hard to cope with such huge quantity of content. And also, the public interest factor comes into the figure. At a moment, citizens will start avoiding reading articles and limit them. This was a question from him.
Yes, I agree with you. Of course, it's a bit complicated. Citizens or the readers or listeners, they also want information. They are searching for relevant information, because during the crisis, urge for more and more information also grows. That shows in, surge in television ratings for new channels. Their overall viewership has also increased. And they are searching information on social media, digital platforms. But certainly, with the deluge of information, and sometimes most of the information is not very important, superficial information is also a huge problem, what we call infodemic. deluging citizens or readers or listeners or viewers with too much information is a serious problem, because they may not be able to deal with it. I think explaining the and decoding the information, sharing relevant information, making meaning of those information is more important. If you're just bombarding citizens with information, they may not be able to decode it, and it may confuse them. But instead of bombarding them with too much information, share or disseminate relevant information, decode that information, explain it, give the context and perspective, explain why it is important for them, and how they can understand its meaning, the real meaning. So I think this is also a time for educating your readers, listeners, and viewers the importance of media literacy. It's a huge challenge for all of us, media educators as well as communicators, to teach a large number of audience or majority of audience about media literacy.
Next, we have a question from Vamsi Mohan.
Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
So we are all aware and sensitive to the fact that the media industry is polarized. And also media industry is staring at a paradigm shift in their operational model as you have brought it. So what impact do you feel?
Vamsi, 1 minute. Vamsi, can you please spare 1 minute?
Sure, sir.
Yeah, please, I am requesting the participants, those who are going to ask the question, please introduce yourself, because we thought maybe 200, Zoom is going to allow the 200 participants, because it is not allowed more than 100, because it is crowded. Because I am seeing past this 45 minutes, many of them they're trying, they're messaging, they could not join more than 200, 300 people. But we have given live in the Facebook. I'm apologize this part. We could not accommodate all the in the Zoom. And I request the participants, those who are asking questions, please introduce yourself, because we have a participant from across the country.
Sure,
many of them they joined Jamshedpur, West Bengal, Delhi, even from Kerala. Many of them they joined and listened this lecture. And please introduce yourself and then ask questions. We don't have any problem. You can ask any questions. Thank you then. Start now, Vamsi. You start.
Sure, sir. Sir, at the outset, I am Lieutenant Colonel Vamsi Mohan, a serving Army officer. I'm on a sabbatical and pursuing my master's in mass communication from Central University, sir, Bangalore Central University.
Mm-hmm.
So my question, as I've been asking you, we are looking at a stage where media is at a crossroads, looking into how to overcome the operational issues. They have to make a major shift because the revenues from advertisements have been on the steep decline. So earlier they have been very comfortable with the revenues from advertisements, so they could play merry hell with their biases. So with the revenue model going to shift from advertisements to subscriptions, will they get more, in your opinion, will they be more sensitive to the profession per se? What would happen to the biases that we have been seeing in the industry?
I think it's very difficult to say how this will unfold. But if you see what is happening in the United States or in most of the Western democracies, where media is polarized again, you go to US, media is very polarized. There is a liberal press and there is a Fox kind of television channels and media houses. But what we have seen that particularly with the liberal press in the United States or in UK, they are flourishing because more and more subscribers are ready to pay for their content. And also very important that New York Times, Washington Post, they are hiring more journalists and they're investing heavily in expertise niche contents, because when you invest in, a niche content or, a specialized content, readers are ready to pay for it. And when you are, pursuing independent journalism, readers are ready to sustain you. Either you take the case of Guardian, or you take the case of New York Times or Washington Post, and many independent, digital platforms, stand-alone digital platforms. In fact, they are heavily dependent on, donations coming from their readers. So I personally think that this new, media model will emerge very soon. I personally think that there may be few philanthropists also, who may help some of the good and quality newspapers and television channels and digital platforms. So personally, I think readers are ready to pay, but only for quality content. And for quality content, news organizations, they have to invest in, quality journalists. They have to pay them good salary. They have to hire from, experts for like health reporting. They may have to hire, MBBS doctors, or for defense reporting, they may have to hire people like you, who knows about, more closely about, defense or, strategy. So I think things will improve. In short duration, we may face some disruption, but in longer term, I think readers will also understand the value of quality information, and they are ready to pay for it.
Next, we have a question from Sukanya Maloli. Ma'am, please go ahead, introduce yourself.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, I am Dr. Sukanya from St. Philomena's College, Department of Journalism, Mysore, Karnataka, sir. So you were talking about, okay, so the newspaper, many newspapers are not able to survive and they are having a problem, crisis and all that. And you said that, okay, even the journalists should be given a supporting hand from the government. So, but in the communist country, I can understand that everywhere the government comes in, intervenes or help. But in a democratic country, I feel that, okay, the newspapers have to sustain, and the government should not interfere or come in the way of the media.
Broadly, in principle, I agree with you.
Yeah.
In most of the democracies, the role of government is not to, interfere or, help them directly giving money to media organization. It will certainly create problem for what we call, conflict of interest. Because when somebody is paying money, there is no free lunch. There will be pressure on your independence. So I personally think that, instead of giving that money directly to the news organization, what I'm suggesting that in number of countries like US and many other Western countries, when they are declaring their relief packages or rescue packages for supporting the economy, they are also giving money for, salaries for, employees, not directly to the corporate, but for sustaining, the salaried class. So in case of newspapers or television channels, in some cases, I think directly paying to the journalist through government, I think we can consider about it, because losing jobs and throwing people out from the, profession is a terrible thing, particularly during this crisis. If this crisis deepens, then how, we are already facing this crisis about the, the young journalists who are preparing to enter in the profession. Who will hire them? Who will hire them? So I think we have to think about some creative, solutions to this challenge. And government has one role to play, and I think we cannot deny that. Government is very important, institution, and of course, as a fourth state, media is also largely part of the system. So we have to think about, if media is so integral to the system, how to ensure that it should sustain in coming future.
So it may become that backdoor entry for the paid news, sir, if government starts supporting.
That fear is there. I think you are right, but we have to, in such situation, we have to think about some creative solution. Like in India, some of the industrialists have pooled money and they have created an independent trust, and that trust is now funding some of the independent digital platforms. So you can say that industrialists are funding these independent digital platforms, but actually that funding is coming through an independent trust where most of the journalists are members of that trust. So we can think of number of solutions or models how to help journalists, particularly because, as you know, our journalist union has filed a case in Supreme Court for ensuring that they should continue in their job, or they should get their salaries or their job security. Because please remember, we have Working Journalist Act also,
yes.
Which is passed by Parliament,
yes.
which is very unique act, and you may not find such act in other democratic countries.
Next we have thank you, ma'am. Next we have a question from Matthew Martin Potolil. So you can go ahead with your question.
Yeah, Dr. Anand Pradhan, thank you for the nice webinar that you organized. I'll be quite quick. I represent a group of marginalized persons and Dr. Matthew Martin, working at the National Institute for the Deaf. These marginalized people has been terribly affected with a lack of accessible media and accessible information in our country. I don't know, Dr. Anand Pradhan, how do you are able to place the situation of accessible information? We have a Act of PWD Act. Our PWD Act is the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, wherein accessible information has to be provided to persons with disabilities through sign language and captions. And as you said, television has been a big boom during this COVID crisis. And even Disaster Act for the first time in India has been applied to our country. And nothing has been taken care of to provide accessible information to persons with disabilities, especially the deaf people who are even locked down. They don't have any other information except through a television, which is still not accessible in our country. And the last date for making things in accessible format is 31st of March 2021, as per the Supreme Court. So what is your take? What is your call on making things in accessible format for persons with disabilities? Dr. Anand Pradhan.
Thank you for raising a very, very important and valid point. When we discuss so many things, we just forget disabled people. They are very important stakeholder in this overall information ecosystem, and we never think about them. So I think you have raised a very valid point. Media industry, government, and other stakeholders, they all must think about it, the point you have raised. And I think I don't have any answer right now, but I think you have raised a very valid point. We must take note of it. And I think, media industry, government, and other stakeholders, they must devise mechanism, strategy to, ensure accessibility of information for the disabled people. Thank you very much for raising this information and very important concern.
Dr. Anand Pradhan, there is also a caption. You can also provide caption to even to webinar like this using Zoom. They have a provision there. So that could be used as a text material for the classroom situation also. So these are the provisions already. I don't know. Media people should be aware of it and start using and commercializing it.
Mr. Martin, I think you have raised very valid point. Because it's a very unprecedented situation. We are all learning. And thank you very much for, you raised a very valid point. It's a learning exercise for me also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have a question from R. Mohan Babu, one of our faculty.
Good morning, Anand.
Good morning, sir.
Thanks for a very good lecture. Some of the points which I'm going to raise probably might sound bizarre, but they are facts per se. So I retired as a career journalist. In India, as you are aware, people are reluctant to pay even 50 paise more when when newspaper owners decide to jack up the cover price. And I'm very sure you will be aware of it. And one of the most subsidized commodities in India, if there is one, it is the newspaper.
True.
You won't even get a cup of coffee or tea for 5 rupees or 6 rupees across the country. And I know, having worked in the media, I know how newspaper owners are scared or jittery when they want to raise it by cover price by 50 paise or 1 rupee. And to quote a fact here, the newspaper price was 3 rupees in 1992, and the same newspaper sells at 6 rupees now after 28 years. In such a scenario, and also people buy it newspaper because of the Radhi value. In such a scenario, how feasible and how payment walls will be for the newspaper owners. I would like to have your views on this.
Okay. I think you have raised very valid and very important point, but let me remind you that in late 80s and early 90s, Bennett Coleman and Company Limited started this price war, a new marketing strategy, where they focus more on advertising revenue and forced all other publications to follow the suit. And because of that, they have developed in last 20-30 years a model where advertisers are supporting newspaper and subscribers are you make them used to not pay for newspaper. You have cultivated this test among your readers. It's because it's a fault of big newspapers. Personally, I think, because if you are saying that the newspaper was priced 3 rupees at that time, I think that was reasonable price. But now in last 30 years, if they are not raising, at least one newspaper, Hindu, is now selling at 7 or 8 or 9 rupees in Delhi. So I think all other newspapers now after this crisis,
they sell at 5 rupees in Bangalore. Only in Delhi, I'm not arguing this thing. Only in Delhi they have jacked up this thing, and I understand they lost 1/3 of their circulation when they jacked up the cover price to 8 rupees or whatever it is. This is just for
I agree. But now some of the news organizations, they are thinking to move out from this rat race, cutthroat competition, which is killing all of them actually, except few big news organizations. So I think this crisis has certainly raised this issue that in a long term sustainability, this model is not going to sustain itself, because it failed in US, it failed in most of the Western country. They have already started investing more in digital transition, and they are certainly thinking about charging money for paywalls. You go to New York Times, you go to Washington Post, you go to Guardian, it's not freely available, and people are paying for it. When they will value information, they will slowly start learning that they have to pay for quality content. I think trash content will still available free of cost. Majority people will go there, but I think in a country size of 1.3 billion people, if they are able to, most of the news organization, particular newspapers, if they are able to find good number of people who are ready to pay for, their print publication as well as their digital publication. I think they may sustain themselves. I think we cannot survive without information and without newspapers. They have to, change their strategy. I'm 100% sure that some of the quality news organization will certainly survive and people will pay for them. But certainly they have to change their strategy. Days of free content is over. This crisis, particularly COVID-19, is death knell for this revenue model of heavily dependent on advertising and less coming from subscription.
I have a supplementary.
Yes, please.
As you are aware, and you did mention that also, that some of the corporates have been funding certain websites with this one, and they also have a sort of a voluntary subscription model.
Yes.
But what I am aware of it is they are also struggling. And will the finances continue eternally? And if the moment the finances or funding stops, will those websites be able to survive? And I'm not thoroughly studied as to how successful the model has been, but I do know some of them did close the shop because they could not sustain their operations beyond 2 years. If I am wrong, please correct me.
No, you are right. In some cases, yes, it's true. But ultimately, it's a question of readers, listeners, and viewers, whether they are ready to pay for quality content or not. In a polarized situation like what we are seeing right now, especially in journalism, and so much trash and irrelevant content we are bombarded with. I think slowly younger generation and people will start understanding the importance of reliable, critical information, and they will start paying for it. I think when our survival depends on critical information, people will pay for it. Nothing more important than information, and particularly in crisis like COVID-19, information is so crucial. So I think that is my guess. Nobody knows actually what will happen. But if you see what is happening in West, some of the independent websites are also sustaining themselves. Of course, they are struggling because it's a transition phase. But in coming years, I don't think that journalism is going to die. We still need critical, reliable, truthful information. We cannot imagine a society without truthful or critical or reliable objective information. So I think people will start paying. We all hope that, like in number of news organizations, like a Guardian newspaper, first time in history, the subscription revenue is more than their advertising revenue. So I think people will start paying for it, but news organizations, they have to invest in quality of content. If they are still, delivering or disseminating trash and infotainment, and they think that people will pay for it, I don't think that people will pay for it.
One last question. See, there is absolutely no control over content on the digital media right now. What's your take on that? I mean, whenever there has been attempt by the government, there's a hue and cry saying that why should government control content on this thing? Do you agree that free for all scenario on digital should continue, or there should be restrictions on social media also? Because in my personal opinion, at times it has been playing havoc because there is no restriction. And this is my personal view. I just wanted your views on that.
Again, this is a very complicated issue. We have to always remember, Article 19, 1 and 2, both, it's a dilemma. It's a dilemma. You know, the issue of regulation is a haunting issue. We are still debating. There is no political consensus in the country how to deal with it. If you remember, in IT Act, Information Technology Act, there was a section called 66A, which was struck down by the Supreme Court. So I think we must, you know, this is the time we must start thinking about an independent regulatory model for all type of media, including newspapers, television channels, social media, and digital platforms. So I think if one independent, truly independent regulatory system, if we can devise that, which is truly independent from government and also from industry, it should not like a press council. I think it should be independent from government as well as industry, and truly, you know, based on self-regulatory model, but certainly with some punishment to those who are constantly and regularly violating the norms. I think we must think about devising some model of regulation based on like a press complaint commission in the UK, or FCC, or some other models from Germany and, you know, other countries. Another issue, because you were raising that issue, so we are still in the, you know, primary phase of discussion. What happened in France and Australia, they are thinking that, you know, some of the big, you know, digital platforms like Google and Facebook, which are taking huge, you know, advertising revenue from publishers, they must share revenue with the publishers. I think we should also think about this option, because these companies, without producing any content, they are making billions and billions of rupees and dollars. So I think, and it's our money, you know, it's because they are attracting our attention and monetizing it. I think they must share some money with it. We must think about it, what should be the best model. But I think an independent regulator and some system of revenue sharing in digital ecosystem, these are the few things we should consider, debate, and think about.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you very much for your this thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohan sir. Next, we have a question from Kirti Prakash.
Pradhan
Good afternoon, sir.
Question.
Hello.
Pradhanji, are you comfortable if another 3-4 questions?
Yes.
Okay then. Okay then, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Kirti. I am a student of the department in Bangalore Central University. Sir, it was a very informative and inspiring talk, sir. We were discussing in this talk about excessive dependence on ad revenues on one hand, and you know, support or help from the government on the other. So this actually brings to my mind our public service broadcasters. So, and again, when we talk about regulation, so our public service broadcasters, we can probably say they're very regulated media, not too much dependence on ads as well. But as of now, the government is not very keen on supporting these, be it AIR or DD. So is it now the time for the government to think about actually, you know, supporting these public service broadcasters in a very big way and making it robust?
I think you have raised very important point, Kirti, which I forget to, you know, discuss in my, you know, lecture. I think the role of public broadcaster is so crucial, and particularly in crisis like this, I think there is no debate or two views on it. A role of public broadcaster in crisis situation, if we think that information is public good. If it is public good, then I think the role of public broadcaster is very crucial. But we have to also think about the present state of our public broadcaster. You know, I think unfortunately, you know, our public broadcaster in last few decades, and from the beginning, in fact, is more like a government, media than a public broadcaster. The real sense public broadcaster, owned by public, for the public, of the public, and by the public. I think this is the right time to also rethink about the role of public broadcaster in India, because there are a lot of dark area in the country where mainstream media is not accessible. A few minutes ago, Mr. Martin was raising issue about disability and accessibility of information for disabled people. Think about large number of people who speak different dialects. They don't have access to information in this crucial time. I think the role of public broadcaster, because huge network of radio, television, I think we must reimagine and redesign our public broadcaster, make it more vibrant, make it more robust, and it should not be like a government broadcaster. It should not like a mouthpiece of government. It should be the real voice of people, and must focus on information, educating people, and with a quality entertainment. I think we have to think about something on the models of NPR, National Public Radio in US, or BBC, or public broadcaster in Germany and in most of the Scandinavian countries. I think it's the right time to start this debate. Thank you very much for raising this question.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirti.
Sir, just one more question.
Yes.
Sir, since you mentioned BBC, sir, sir, BBC is kind of funded by all the license money and all that they're getting. So is that model, can we emulate that model in India? Is it possible here?
Kirti, not long ago, around 30, 40 years back, people were in India paying for radio license, radio, when they were buying transistor, they were paying money for it. Some license fee kind of a thing. I think there is no problem in reimposing it. A small amount of money coming from, now most of the television networks, they are charging either through local cable television or through dish or DTH platforms. We can still impose a very small amount of money to sustain, to make really independent public broadcaster. People will pay for it, a small amount of money. It's a 1.3 billion people, if a small amount coming from every household, if people start paying for whenever they are buying a transistor or whenever they are buying a television set for it, I think we can sustain it. I think, instead of depending on government revenue, we must think about some independent source of money coming to a public broadcaster to make it really independent.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, finally, sir, one last query, sir. Since you mentioned about the specialized journalists who are expert in certain fields, from the education sector, either universities or central universities or IIMC itself, can we expect any kind of training programs, short-term programs, and things like that after
Actually, we are thinking, to launch a course in health journalism. We experimented a few years back with our PG diploma journalist. There was a 4-month small capsule program, what we call critical appraisal skills based health communication course. So we trained few journalists, and some of them are really doing good job during this crisis. So I think some of the leading media and communication departments, they have to think about such courses and programs.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have a question from Dhruv Patel. So I hope it's fine because we have too many questions pouring in. A lot of people wants to tap the resource of knowledge you were having.
No, I'm also enjoying. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Dhruv,
Hello, sir.
your question, please.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Sir, right now I am aspirant of IMC for 2020, and I want to do a course in radio and television.
Yeah, most welcome. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Sir, what can right now? What can I do? The activity which is play an important role in IMC for me.
I think study. Journalism is all about studying and writing. So read more. So if I have to use 6 words, read, write, which means read more, write more, and learn more. So read books, read magazines and journals, read quality newspapers, digital platforms, gather information, start writing and practicing with your writing skills. These are the crucial skills in journalism, and that is what is also crucial for IMC entrance test. So information, analytical skill, communication skill, and how you write or how you express yourself. These are the crucial things. All the best.
Thank you, sir. And which type of activity I can do right now? Maybe some taking a sessions, maybe something video session, etc. Anything, because you tell us na. Because right now we have to focus on quality journalism, like health journalism, or means it's like a proper practice.
Or science journalism, or technology, reporting about technology. These are the new emerging areas. Business journalism, financial and economic journalism. These are the very important area, or developmental stories, reporting development. These are some of the most important crucial areas in coming future. Data journalism, which is very important and crucial. There are so much data available, but how to make sense of that data, how to interpret that data. These are the crucial skills. So we require, in journalists now, we require some mathematical skills also. There is so much data. So, all these things you have to study, learn, and, learning is a continuous process. There is no end to it. And particularly in journalism, there is no end to learning. Every day, journalists learn something new. And particularly in such crisis, they are every day learning something new.
And my last question is that just give me a short information about how to write effectively for IMC entrance exam test.
Be focused, be factual, be analytical, grammatically as well as, content wise. Your answers must contain information, fact, analysis. It must be very focused, to the point. What is asked in the question paper, you should answer that. That is the crucial thing.
Okay, sir. Information, fact, and to the point.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dhruv. So next we have a question from Redmi Note 4. Digital world indeed allows us anonymity. Redmi Note 4, sir, you can go ahead with your question. Okay. So we take a question from Rakshita Kumari next. Rakshita Kumari.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Rakshita, please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Namaste. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead, Rakshita.
Okay. Okay, sir, in this pandemic right now,
Rakshita, do we have you?
information to people. Do you think, sir, actually these many newspapers or the electronic medias are necessary to disseminate information? Don't you think any one newspaper or any one radio station or any one news channel, that is a government news channel, don't you think there is enough to spread the information?
Opinion and information. We need more sources of information, not the less sources of information. uh, uh, I don't imagine. It's difficult for me to imagine a situation where we have only one television channel, only one newspaper, only one digital platform. It will create havoc. It would be, like a situation in North Korea, where only one channel and one radio station and one newspaper informing public. Diversity and plurality of opinion, when we get access of information from diverse sources, we get, all kind of information, and then we make sense of it. Sometimes if there is only one news organization or only one television channel, one newspaper, it can be manipulated. It can be, misused by their owners, or maybe government, or maybe individuals. So that's why we need, diversity and plurality in media ecosystem or information ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you. So next we have a question from Veena S. She's been waiting for quite long to ask this question. Veena, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much. And hello, sir. My name is Veena, and I'm the student of Electronic Engineering from Bangalore University.
Please go ahead.
My question is, these days, the crisis of COVID-19, there is a mass psychological effect on journalists. Like young journalists who does internship during this period, they are scared to go to the reporting areas and do the report because they're scared that they might get affected because of this coronavirus. So how do you give motivation to them? How do you motivate them, the young journalists?
These days, even doctors, nurses, paramedic staff, police officials, they're all in the field. They are the corona warriors, what we are calling them, corona warriors. They are performing their duties. In a similar way, I think journalists, or the role of journalism in this crisis, is very crucial. And majority of journalists, actually they have, it's an opportunity for them also to prove their importance, to show their importance. And I think, the way journalists, majority of reporters, particularly I would say, majority of reporters who are in the field and reporting from the field about this crisis, unfolding crisis, evolving crisis, is remarkable. I must, thank them. Because of them, we are getting information about what is happening in the field. And not only about coronavirus and how it is affecting people, but also about the migrant crisis, also about the economic crisis, how it is impacting medium and small scale industries, how it is, creating problem for poor people, how it is creating problem for those who are suffering from other diseases. This is the right time to, for journalists to go in the field and report these important and crucial stories when people are listening them, people are watching them, people are reading them. And I think It is the responsibility of their news organization as well as their professional organization and also individual journalists to take care of themselves. Take all precautions, like in other cases of paramedic staff or doctors or police officers. They are also taking different type of precautions. So I think journalists, the reporters who are in the field, they should take all these precautions, washing their hands, using sanitizers, using masks. All these things are important. They should take care of all these things and take precautions. But I think, journalists, if you are really, a reporter or a journalist, this is the time when you want to go in the field and report. People are watching. This is the time when you show your mettle. This is the time when show your caliber. So I don't think that, journalists are scared. Of course, they should take precaution, and they must take precaution.
Thank you so much, sir. It's really necessity to give information to public. It's like a food, clothing, shelter. It's not less than that.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we have a question from Vishal Jha.
Sir, good afternoon. Myself, Vishal Jha. I am pursuing graduation from IP University. Me and my friend Shreya was joining this group meeting, and we are also want to become our study continue through joining IIMC. Sir, my question is that in India, journalist state is not good. We are facing lots of sacrificing, lots of killing, and lots of attacking progress. Also, reporting from without borders are mentioned about Indian journalist state. We are not freely doing our reports. So what can you speak about the freedom of journalists in India? Because we are already ranked in 142 position in Freedom Index, World Freedom Index.
That is one survey which is saying that we are on 142nd position. But overall, my personal impression is, despite all the challenges and difficulties of reporting truthfully, accurately, objectively, India and Indian democracy is very vibrant. Media is very free, and we have freedom of speech and expression, which is a fundamental right protected by our constitution. And in a number of cases, Supreme Court also ensured that journalists enjoy this freedom. So I don't agree that journalists, they don't have, freedom of speech and expression, and they cannot report. Of course, there are difficulties. In most of the profession, you face difficulties. So in journalism also, we face difficulty, we face challenges. What we call, these are the professional hazards. But we take those challenges and turn into opportunity. I think during the crisis, when you face such challenges, your journalism also flourishes. It also shines. So I personally think that instead of worrying about the state of of journalism or difficulties, I think about those journalists who are taking risk and courageously reporting about either coronavirus or about economic crisis or about some other issues of public importance. So I think you should take inspiration from those journalists who are still speaking truth to the power.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. All the best.
Next, we have a question from one of our students, Ajay Kumar Tambe. Ajay, you can go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Good morning, sir. Good afternoon.
Good morning.
It was a great and nice session and informative from you, sir, and thank you for that. So, I'm a student of mass communication media. So, here are some questions and some doubts of that I want to clear it out. So, country like this and aspiring journalists like us, like my question is like there are many reporters, many journalists like Siddharth Varadarajan and many reporters and many journalists from Kashmir. There are being detained and there are being put on FIR on them, just reporting some events and some news over the government. And what like aspiring student like us, what is the guidance and instruction that you wanted to give us, sir?
You know, as I've already explained you, there are risks, there are challenges, there are difficulties. And I personally think that these are, you know, what we call professional hazard. In every profession, you have such hazards. You know, even in US and many Western democracies, journalists face such difficulties and challenges. You know, take the case of United States. Almost every day, President Trump is abusing journalists in press conferences.
Yes, sir.
And but despite that, journalists are doing their job. I think, you know, whenever you face challenges, whenever you face FIRs, whenever you face difficulties, when you ever face threats, I think your journalism is doing something very important. And I think that should give us some, you know, boost that we are doing something very important. So I would say that like in any profession, there are professional hazards. In journalism also, there are risks, there are professional hazards. So if you want to take that challenge, join journalism. If you don't want to take these challenges, I think either you take the case of Siddharth Varadarajan and many other such journalists. You know, this is not the first time. In earlier regimes also, in earlier governments also, journalists were facing this problem. From 1991 to till now, more than 100 journalists in India are murdered. You know, so I think this is a constant challenge. This is a constant risk. And but still, society value journalism. They respect, you know, the role of journalists. They still enjoy a certain level of confidence of the society, and that's why, you know, people you know, respect journalists, and they still value their role in society. So I think don't worry about all these things. Take it as a challenge, and go ahead. Like many of the journalists are still, you know, pursuing what they think is right, what they think is correct, and what they think is speaking truth to power.
Yes, sir. And also another question. I believe that Pari Network, from editor and founder of by P. Sainath, is doing well and great job that need of a time. And they are reaching out, and I believe they are reaching out the ethics and values of journalism, and they are respecting it. And I think their views and their getting of audience is a little bit lesser, and I think they need to be reach out to larger audience. What's your view on it? View on that, sir?
Ajay, you know, there is no doubt that P. Sainath and Pari Network is doing, you know, very, very important job. Of course, their, you know, audience base is small, but still, their work is very important for the society, and still they are able to influence public policy. You know, in most of the countries, particularly in Western country, you as a student of journalism, you know, there is always a quality press and there is a tabloid press. Tabloid press always enjoyed very, you know, huge readership. Like Sun and Mirror and Daily Mail, there are millions of, you know, readers or the subscribers. And
Yes,
Guardian may have a very few or a very few thousand or maybe less than million, but still on public policy, on public discourse, on public debate, Guardian, impact is far more than any tabloid newspaper. So I think what Pari Network is doing, what other independent digital networks are doing, what other individual journalists also, YouTubers these days, number of journalists using YouTube, they are making far more impact on society and information ecosystem than some of the big news organizations. So I think because now our information ecosystem is more diverse and more plural with different and number of voices, I think I'm confident that platforms like Pari Network will continue to play important role in initiating public debate and public discourse.
I think
Yes.
Sarita.
Yes, sir.
Last question,
Thank you,
Sriya
sir.
Trishal. There is one question. Last question, Sriya Trishal. After that, we can wind up because he's also tired. I'm also tired.
Apparently,
The last question.
apparently, we have questions pouring in from all platforms, sir, for you in our chat, in our emails, in our WhatsApp, in our Facebook.
And next week I can come and only answer questions.
I think
Let's. One is Abhishek Prasad and Sriya Trishal. These are only two questions.
Okay.
Now,
Go ahead.
request other audience to stop because we'll ask Abhishek Prasad and Sriya Trishal. After that, we can wind up.
Okay.
Yeah. Anand sir, I just had a request for you. If you are comfortable, you can share in your email ID so that students can reach you on there with their queries.
No, I think it would be better. I can share email, but if there are hundreds of emails, it would be difficult for me also to respond to everyone. So I would be, it would be better for me to come next week and answer only question instead of giving lecture. I'm also enjoying these questions. Very, very important question. But it's a quite long session. It's more than I think how much time?
We are almost reaching 3 hours, sir. Almost
2 hours. Yeah,
yes,
2 hours. Yes. So I think for every good discussion, because I have also learned a lot, because number of questions, very intelligent questions are coming, very important questions and points raised by colleagues and participants of this discussion. So I would also love to answer those questions, but maybe next time. So let's take 2 more questions and then round up this discussion.
All right, sir. Next, we have a question from Shreya Trishal. Shreya, you can go ahead with your question.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Very good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shreya Trishal and I'm from Jammu and Kashmir. I'm currently pursuing my graduation in mass communication and journalism from IP University. So my question is that during these COVID crisis, we saw the plight of these migrant workers, but it seemed most mainstream media channels were forced to cover the plight of poor workers because of sensational right. So what's your take on that?
I broadly agree with your observation. Majority of television channels, initially they were not reporting, and later on when they started reporting, they were reporting it as something very sensational, disrupting things. They were not looking to the, this crisis, unfolding crisis, human crisis of such a huge nature. But I would also, say that there are a number of digital platforms and 1 or 2 television channels also, particularly by the digital platforms and some of the independent journalists. they are the real chroniclers of this crisis, human crisis. This was the real human interest story unfolding before our eyes. And I'm glad to tell you that I have read some of the really good stories in some of, at least few newspapers and digital platforms, standalone digital platform and journalists. They have reported it accurately without sensationalizing it. And because of their reporting, I think government and civil society has both have forced to take note of it. And because of that, we are seeing some measures taken by the government to mitigate this crisis. But I think you raised a very, very valid point. It's a learning experience for majority of television channel and journalists, how to deal with such situation and how to tell such stories. These are the stories, I think, very crucial, very important, but we must think about the humane nature of this story and tell this story with same human concerns. Next question.
Thank you, sir. Next we have Abhishek Prasad.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you.
So my question is,
Abhishek, go ahead.
Sir, my question is, education has suffered a lot during this time of pandemic.
Abhishek, please introduce yourself, Abhishek.
Sorry, sir. Myself, Abhishek Prasad. I am a student of journalism and mass communication from Jamshedpur. And my question is, education has suffered a lot during this time of pandemic, and we took the help of technology. So my question is, what is the future of media education? Will it be major change, or go back to normal when things go normal, and the challenges associated with it? The other thing is, the budding journalist who can't even go outside and come. So how they will cover the story?
Every crisis presents opportunity. We are also learning as an educator. Nobody thought about this crisis. The way every business, every profession has got disrupted because of this crisis. I think every profession, including education sector, is learning how to deal with this crisis, and they are devising different methods. This webinar, I never thought that I would be talking to a computer terminal, and also, but it's also an opportunity. Now I'm talking to you who is sitting in Jamshedpur, and somebody who is sitting in Jammu, somebody is sitting in Kerala, somebody is sitting in some other place. It has also opened an opportunity for me or most of the educators. But certainly, these are the initial phase. We are still learning. In coming years, I think the COVID crisis has taught us that we have to certainly think about what we call blended learning. Blended means some face-to-face training as well as some online or technology-driven training programs or teaching programs or education programs. So future is for blended learning. Students like you who may be sitting in Jamshedpur, who can access some of the great courses through this blended learning model. But certainly, like every profession, education sector has also disrupted because of this crisis, and they are still learning in the process of dealing with it. They will certainly devise methods which will be more appropriate to this crisis or in coming future. I don't think that we are going to see the similar situation like earlier. We are not going to that normal. there will be some new normal, what they are calling, experts are calling new normal. So we must prepare ourselves for new normal. And what will be the new normal, we really don't know. But I personally think that it will be some kind of a blended learning where we will have some face-to-face, but some training or education based on online, or based on technology.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abhishek. Now that brings us to the end of this session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
No, but Sarita.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
No, 1 minute, Pradhanji. Let us say some few words. Thanks to Anand Pradhanji. Okay, I myself will speak. Anand Pradhanji, I'm very grateful and thanks on behalf of the Department of Mass Communication Journalism, Bangalore Central University, and then my, of course, the department and the university, because you have spent a valuable time with us, and we got in the chat group, there was a lot of message we have received, and they said it's very informative and valuable, this talk arranged by, but unfortunately, our Zoom is permitted only 100, but there was, because full 100 is, of course, was participated. And the students and others who have participated across the country, across the nation, of course, Jamshedpur, Delhi, and other parts of the country, for them also I'll say that thanks. Thank you, Pradhanji, and thank for my faculties and Chanakya, Raghavendra, Sarita, Mohan Babu, Tejashwini, and Marswamy also, those have took an initiative to organize this on behalf of my department and personnel. Thank you, Pradhanji. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Narasimha Murthy, for giving me this opportunity to talk to such a large audience. And particularly, I must thank those who raised questions. Yeah. Some of the very crucial, important questions they have raised. And I think they have, pointed some of the, most important aspect of our discussion, which I forget. So I must thank all of them. I really enjoyed this discussion, despite, very long and very sometimes awkward when you talking to, a camera sitting in a room. But I personally enjoyed. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And thank you so much for all the participants for listening me. And I sincerely apologize for some of the initial, hiccups. And sometimes I may be repeating myself also. Sometimes when you are talking to, computer terminal and you're not able to see the reactions of your participant, then it would be really difficult what to talk. So it was a learning experience for me. I will try to make myself better next time. Thank you so much.
No, we have to say that thanks to our Mohan Babu senior faculty. He's also with us. We have to say thanks for Mohan Babu sir also. And of course, his efforts also is done very important for us, and he has done wonderful last for this. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Please do join us on again a very intense webinar next week, coming Saturday. We have Kavita Krishnan.
This week, Sarita, it's not next week.
Next is
this Saturday. This Saturday.
Yeah, next week
please do join us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pradhanji, we request you also join.
Okay, we'll try.
Because probably you have to join at 10:45 only. Because after 10:45 you may not get. Otherwise, you have to go for Facebook, other these things.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I request the students of Department of Mass Communication to stay back. Sir, you want to address them?
I'll let others go. Well, only our students, if others, we can ask them to quit.
Yes, sir.
And we can have our own personal meeting of our faculty. And of course, we are all faculty are here.
Yes,
and we can have a discussion on our students.
Yes, sir.
Still, many of them are there.
Yes, sir. Still 43 more are there.
We can remove that. We can rejoin. No problem.
Okay, sir.
No, you can inform all other our faculty and students. You can stop this webinar, and we can join.
Okay,
we can
sir.
join
We end the meeting now, and we'll join back in next 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Raghu, sir, are you online?
Raghu, session end ಮಾಡಿ
Please end, sir. Please end the meeting.
classroom session ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಸೆಷನ್
ಅದು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
Yes, sir. ಹಾಗೆ ಇದು ಲಿಂಕ್ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಡಿ ವಾಟ್ಸ್ಆಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ದು.
ಅದು ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇನೆ.
ಓಕೆ ಎಂಡ್ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು